So today is the 1st of March, and I decided to record today because a couple of things have happened, and I have decided to say something about them. The first thing is what's going on in Kansas. They have, in Kansas, shoved forward a law super fast without letting people really vote on it to make it so that all transgender folks' IDs are invalid. And whatever gender was on their birth certificate is now the gender they have to have on their driver's license, whether they look like that gender or not. I find that very strange because, you know, having been born intersex, I think about people who get completely ignored by things like this. Like they're talking about, trans people as if no one passes, as if no one actually looks like the gender of their choice, um, and the gender that they actually are. And it's very strange to me. The other thing is, they've, by doing this, invalidated the old driver's licenses, making it extremely difficult to deal with as a as an issue. Like there was no grace period or transition time given for this in any way. It was overnight. Their documents are just like destroyed. So trying to even get a new document now becomes harder because the document you would have shown and presented to help get you the new document has no validity by this law. So they've not only intentionally made it very traumatic for folks, but they've also made it a big giant hurdle to try to get a new driver's license for them as well. And there's a lot of people who are concerned that other states will start doing this crap. There is a lawsuit that has been opened up by some trans folks in Kansas about this law. And quite frankly, the handling of this law has been absurd. It didn't go through any appropriate voting or channels. And again, the way it was implemented is pretty much impossible to comply with. Um, I know, thankfully, in the state that I live in, that this is not a thing that would hopefully ever happen. But if enough states start doing it, I'm concerned that federally, that something like this might try to happen. The federal government already tried to change my documents before and already did change some people I know's documents who used to be in the military. Um, the government also has tried to keep Medicaid from covering stuff for my healthcare before, basically mostly my testosterone, although they did take longer than usual to approve my surgery as well. But the thing is, again, I need hormones to exist in a healthy way. I am like any guy who can't produce enough testosterone to be healthy. I just need testosterone not only for, say, transition reasons of or something like that, but literally I need it to be healthy. I get very sick, like life or death sick. And so for them to be this single minded about it is not just causing like mental anguish as much as that's already a horrible and terrifying thing, but also it can affect people's actual ability to like live. Um, and I don't necessarily want to bring it up, but it's true. Um, the rates of people ending their own life and giving up has gone up amongst um, trans, non-binary, and intersex folks. And can you blame them for getting hopeless? It's a little over a year that the current administration's been in power, and they've started wars with more than one country, and yet demanded a Nobel Peace Prize. Um, and they keep trying to attack citizens. I was born in the US. I am a citizen just as natural born as any other citizen who was born here. And I don't understand why any, US citizen deserves less rights simply because they were born different or because they grew up to be a little different. You're still a citizen. To try to make it this ostracizing, it's pretty horrible. And I keep waiting for a friend of mine to be right that other countries start opening up refugee status for trans, non binary, and intersex people. But what I'm worried about is on top of all of these horrible things, like it's already bad, the headlines just say trans people. And the news articles mostly just focus on trans people. And, you know, intersex people are very rare, but we get lumped in with trans folks. And it's a little frustrating because um, it's like we're ignored. It's like we don't exist. And I very much support trans folks getting help and getting care. I don't want them to be ignored. I just want to be included in the concern. If people are only concerned about trans people, but they're not concerned about intersex people, then that's just more of the same as it's always been historically. And that's frustrating because intersex people don't get to decide how they were born. They like have no say in the matter at all. And it's not fair. And I know, the current administration, fairness is not exactly on their mind, but it's still frustrating because even from, say, progressive or left leaning people, intersex people kind of just get forgotten completely. The the whole the whole thing is bad. Like all of it is bad. I don't want to detract from how bad it is. I'm saying it's super bad, and also there are people who are invisible, and the harm being done to them is invisible, and nobody's thinking about saving them or protecting them or letting them open up a lawsuit. Like, they don't think about them at all. They just don't get any say in the matter. It's a bunch of larger arguments that are going back and forth and at it, and then whatever those larger argument groups decide is what happens to happen to the intersex people. And again, intersex people are very rare, but also that doesn't mean they deserve to just have arbitrary harm done upon them and to not be considered or thought about in any way, shape, or form. I haven't seen a single headline in regards to Kansas that in any way, shape, or form draws attention to the fact that it's anyone but trans people. And that's including progressive papers and magazines and articles. And that's really, really frustrating. And people do it a lot, even like my own friends. I don't I don't think it's too hard to say a couple of extra words there. Instead of saying, oh, trans people are under attack in Kansas, saying trans, non binary, and intersex people are under attack in Kansas. You're just adding a couple of words, but it adds a significant amount of opportunity for discussion. It offers a significant amount of representation, and it's really difficult to be invisible. People can ignore harms done to you really easily if there's no attention drawn to it at all. And because of that, I I don't know who follows me on this channel very much. I tried looking up who my followers are on this channel, and apparently you have to actually designate that it's okay for your subscriptions to be public for me to see. As far as I know, there's not people from my like real life who follow me on this channel or like watch these videos. If there is, whoops, but as far as I know, there's not. There were a couple of followers who were having their status or whether their subscriptions could be public or not, uh, that it was visible, but I didn't know any of them. This channel is more for me than anything else. It's like it. I originally I was doing this vlog and also writing and reading books and stuff, but my time has become highly limited. So it's become more and more just about this vlog for me. And it's important to me to have this catalog and I can go back and look at videos or go back and see moments in my life and things that I was focusing on. And I know, oh, at that particular junction, this really hard thing was going on in my life. But the only thing I talked about was this positive thing about transition or something. I try to keep this mostly focused on, you know, intersex and trans issues, but sometimes stuff happens in life, and I've noticed that the last several videos I've brought it up, but I've been very vague um, compared to what actually happened, and it's apparently almost over. And I've been thinking a lot about the whole invisibility thing, and I can't talk to people in my real life about it almost at all. Um, I have like therapists that I can talk to, and I have my roommate, and I have a friend, and technically I had an advisor for a while, and that's it. I had a school counselor for a while, but that's no longer a thing either. So in reality, almost no one knows. And I just feel like I need to get it out of my system because I've been trying and trying to figure it out, and it's super confusing for me, the entire thing. So um, I'm not going to say any names, but I am going to actually tell the whole complicated, complex story of my stalker. And um, it's dramatic and it is very strange. I feel like uh, someday I should like I don't know write a movie or something about it because it's absurd. Um, it's been over a year that I've been dealing with this situation. Um, but it was way before that it actually started. I just hadn't known. Um, I I came to college um, mostly because I went to re up for my food stamps, my EBT benefits, and they were like, "Hey, you've never lived above the poverty threshold in your whole life. You should go to college." And I didn't really think much would happen, but they said they'd pay for me to get a degree, so I thought I helped lots of people with money before. I'll get this degree, sure. Let's try it. At least I'll have a stable career instead of going from random job to random job. I was very lost after my ex-wife abandoned me, quite brutally. And I, needed something. And when I got to school, at first it was very disorientating on the first orientation and on the first day of school. I was like, what am I doing? I should not be here. But on the second day of school, I met a teacher who was the most inspiring person I'd ever seen in my entire life. And she, told me to come to her office hour. And then she, in her office hours, convinced me that I had potential and that I wasn't allowed to be the smallest person in the room anymore. And from that moment on, she was just my hero. And she wasn't just a teacher, she also helped me, you know, meet people at the university. She helped me to get a job. She helped me get a job as a tutor, and she became my faculty advisor, and for like, writing papers and submitting them for publishing and stuff. She also became the faculty advisor for a club that she convinced me to start and be the president of. And all of this within the first quarter. Like, bam, just right there. Uh, my whole life felt like I was like spinning in a different direction. Like the whole earth started spinning in another direction. I was shocked because nobody ever spoke to me this way or treated me this way. And there was another professor in the first quarter who also started to believe in me very strongly. I think it was like 2 days after the first one. And so these two professors had super different personalities from each other, but they just both kept seeing some sort of something in me and encouraging me. And the one who started first was my hero and was very like push me into things and tell me to go do this thing and see if I'll do it. The the other one was very like gentle and coaxed me towards things and stuff. So they had super different personalities. I referred to them as my yin and yang because they were very different from each other, but it worked. It worked really well. And it just went along like that for the whole first year of college. There was this person who was my hero, and then this person who was like my peaceful, safe, contemplate life person. And I thought eventually the person who was my hero was going to get bored of me and find some other shiny new student, and I would be disinteresting at some point. And I was not looking forward to that. I thought, you know, at some point she's going to give me some speech about, oh, you're a bird ready to fly the nest and spread your wings, blah, blah, blah. Instead, it was the super nice one, the gentle, peaceful one who did that. I was very surprised. I was not expecting that. And we have stayed in touch. We do send each other super long emails. We have seen each other, since and everything. She's still a super kind person, but she had been very, very consistently mentoring me literally every other week. And um, that's so I was like, oh no, what if the other one does it too? I wasn't expecting it at all. So I sent this list of all the things that she had told me to do that I had done. And she said how happy it made her, my hero. Um, and all these other things we were going to do. And I was very excited, very happy. And the summer was weird, but I didn't know why. And I went to make a speech um, because I was asked to by the president of the school. And went to, when I went to talk to her, I was trying to also bring up my hero and I always have had a little bit of communication issues. Um, I'm not sure what the barrier is there, but for some reason, she says as little as possible and expects you to like fill in the gaps with assumptions. And I'm pretty good at it. Like, I would say a solid 80% of the time, at least, I can guess right. And I've gotten used enough to her moods and her mannerisms and stuff that I can figure out what she wants. But she's not very forward with what she wants. Now, she'll make a demand of you, but she won't tell you what she actually wants. It's interesting. Anyway, she finds me to be too wordy. I do process out loud. So we have this like communication thing where we don't always understand each other, but we work really well together. We both have really strong work ethics, and we're both highly motivated, ambitious people, and we both want to like change the world, and make the world better and help people. We both like a lot of the same things. So we just kept getting along. And she was like, someday we'll write collaborative papers together. And then she kind of like disappeared a bit over the summer. And she also dropped me from calling her on something, which I thought was strange. But later she said she dropped all her students. She came into a Zoom call for us to talk about communication stuff and setting up for the next year, I thought. And instead, she started the whole thing with like, we're not talking about anything that has to do with feelings. And she was very like a wall. And I was very confused. I was super confused. And she just kept saying the same thing over and over again. She does that. And I get, whenever I get confused, she literally just repeats the exact same phrase. There's no added context. There's no trying to clarify in a different way. It's just literally the exact same words. So then I just stay exactly the same amount of confused. Um, so that didn't really go very well. And then she was like, "But I'll read your speech." Well, she starts reading the speech, and it's this giant tribute to her and to the school and how much it saved my life to come there. And she felt very like, oh dang. And so then I felt guilty about that. And later, when you know the president of the school was like, "Yeah, still do the speech," I message her and I'm like, I feel like maybe it felt like an accusation, even though I had already emailed you the speech before we even did the Zoom call of discomfort. Like maybe you felt uncomfortable or something, and I hate that. And she was like, "Oh no, there's no need to apologize. It's important for your story to be told, and you're literally my sunshine." And on the day of the speech, saved a seat for me, and I went and did my speech. I gave her a little sun because she had called me her sunshine, and I told her, every time I shine, I'm just trying to be like you because you're the sun. Um, I meant it. She was a little overwhelmed for sure because she doesn't like a lot of attention on her unless she's prepared for it. But you know, it was a very moving speech, and she doesn't like to cry. Like she really, really doesn't. So that was a thing too. But in reality, I wish I didn't do the speech. Because the very next thing after the speech was a training for the tutors, and we had a couple of new people, and people were talking about the speech and how moving it was and how inspiring, and oh my god, it reminds them why they teach and why they do this job in the first place and all these things. And it was about her and me. For like the first part of it, it was about this really horrible moment in my childhood and how I stayed stuck there. And then in the middle, it was about her like insistently saving me. And then the last part was more about like the whole school, and there were other teachers and things like that. Um, so it was like this build up, right? Um, Also, at that tutoring training, I sat in the back with someone I was friends with, and she always sits in the back, so she wasn't that far away. And during the break, she was like, "Oh, here, I've been reading your paper. We're gonna work on it like this, blah blah blah." I was like, "Okay, cool." And one of the new tutors was sitting behind us, listening to all of this, and I did not know. And the new tutor, after the training was done and stuff, started talking to me, and I was like, "Oh, I'm, like a donkey who's never had its hooves shorn, and so they grow and grow and grow to where the donkey can't run. But if you cut the hooves down, then the donkey discovers it can run, and it just runs and runs and runs. And I'm like that. I'm like that donkey. My hero and I both like donkeys, so she came up partway in, and I said again, she seemed happy, and then she wanted to sit with us because she had become recently the director for our part of the tutoring center. And she sat down next to me, and we sat down across from the new tutors. And one of them was very open when he introduced them on the tutoring email chain that he did not like my personality at all. I came, she's like, "Here's these new people, welcome them." I always come across like, "Hey, if you need a tour, let me know. I'm excited to help you, Mr. Enthusiasm," right? he was like, "Whoa, can we tone it down?" Like he did not like me, right? So here she was super happy. I had just done this speech and I wanted her to be happy. And here he was, and I was like, I'm gonna make sure, and treat him, all nice and get along with him. So she knows that I'm trying. And unbeknownst to me, that man was not a good man. And he kept asking me, "Oh, do you like working here? Do you like working under her?" And I was just like, "Oh yeah, she's awesome. She's the best. Have you taken any classes with her?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, I've done one," and I'm like, "Yeah, she's the best." Um, I always have been very enthusiastic about telling people how great she is. So from that point on, whenever he was around, very often he just wanted to hear about her, and I didn't understand. I didn't know it all until in February. So he started, and this was all at summer, right before the start of the school year. School year start in the fall, and right before the fall, at the end of the summer, we had this training, and there was the big, giant, huge event with me doing the speech. And the thing is that speech, it was my first standing ovation. It was my very first time being a keynote speaker. I got paid to speak for the first time for that speech. And there are people who still come up to me to this freaking day and tell me how much that speech impacted them. And I still wish I hadn't done it because I said that speech, that guy knew I was the one who knew about her. I was the one who was close with her. He knew exactly what to do. And he the next February was complaining about her some because he was taking yet another class with her. And I was like, "Oh, don't worry about it. I'll talk to her because her and Canvas don't always get along. Canvas being a program that assignments are in, and I was like, he'll change things and stuff. And he started explaining to me that he hopes so because I don't want to say the whole conversation. It was extremely disturbing, but essentially he came to the school in the first place because he saw something of her online. I don't know if it was a picture or a post or what, but he encountered something of her online, decided that he was into her, investigated her life, found out she was a teacher at this school, came to this school to be her student so that he could get into her life. And now here he was, a tutor working for her. So he had come to the school to infiltrate her life, and he had been successfully doing so. And I realized his intentions were very nefarious. Um, he he was quite insistent that he would have her, no matter the thing. Like, people have had a crush on her before, and who are students, and I'm always like, "Oh, she would never date a student. She's too professional," and they usually drop it. Or, "Hey, she would never change her lifestyle. She's a workaholic," you know. And he was extremely insistent on his goals for her. And so I went to try to tell her. But when I went to try to tell her, she was like, I can't hear this. She said she had been stalked before, that she had had dangerous situations with students before, and she wouldn't be able to function. She wouldn't be able to do her job. She could not know who it was. And thank you for, being concerned for her, but she did not want to know who it was. And I was like, "Does that mean you don't want me to report this?" And she said, "You can do whatever you want, but I don't want to know about it." And so I did. It was a snow day, and I still went to the ghost campus. And there was literally no one there except security, but security didn't have their computers up. And so they wrote stuff down, and said, yeah, this sounds like the kind of thing to escalate. And I gave them my phone number in case they needed, more information or something. And then it was more snow days. And then nothing ever happened. And I thought, well, they probably just made some sort of a filing or whatever, but decided there wasn't enough to go off of or something. Um, I decided I would not speak about her in front of this guy ever again because he had been using my enthusiasm about her being my hero to get information about her. And I hadn't known, but I could look back on it and realize, oh my God, he's been like able to pretend they have interests in common and learn more stuff about her because of me. And I felt really horrible about it. And also, I hate being manipulated. So I just was like, I'm done. If I can help it, her name won't come out of my mouth in front of him. You know, he noticed almost immediately. Now, he didn't know I had, gone to report him, but he knew almost immediately that I wasn't talking about her anymore. And he became quite retaliatory. It was like a drug addict being cut off from drugs or something. He just, at first, he was very like, oh, trying to force his way into being my friend. But I already had lots of friends. I didn't need his friendship. And he even started trying to convince me to go off of campus um, to meet like his roommate and have like a trauma dumping date and shit. And I was like, no, I'm not doing that. And he started being like, oh, you're not what you seem to be. You pretend you're Mr. Nice Guy, but you're not really. And started trying to tell some people bad things like that. Nobody believed him because I had a really good reputation and because I help people like all the time at campus. And then he started getting worse. He started bullying me every single time we were alone. I was afraid, what is he going to do? And some of the time, he didn't do something. But at least 3 times a week, he would go full on just picking at me. And the tension of even the times when he didn't do that, of waiting for, is he going to, was so hard. On top of that, he was still very obsessed with her and did things that were horrible, like public masturbation. Um, and I was the only one there, and he would like try to stand in her way to get her to interact with him, even in a negative way. He would get so high off of it. He'd be rocking back and forth with his euphoria that she would be like, "Get out of my way" or something, like, or "Hey, good day," you know. And I couldn't tell her any of this, and she was our direct boss, so I couldn't even go to a boss and say, "Hey, um, I don't want to work with this guy." Like, I was trying to be a shield for her and make sure she didn't find out who her stalker was. And at the same time, he was harassing the crap out of me and bullying me. And he started telling my students that I was tutoring, like that I was didn't know what I was talking about and trying to undermine me and steal a bunch of them to like him more than me. And you know, he was just he would stand over me if I was sitting and just like breathe over me and like tell me how much he missed me and he loved arguing with me. He would constantly try to start arguments with me. And I don't like fighting with people. And he would just pick and pick. He would, if I was having a conversation with someone on an opposite side of the room, he would yell across the whole room and invade the conversations and start arguments and stuff. And it was just like super distressful. And it was just months and months of this. But she didn't know who it was. And I eventually got to the point where I started trying to ask her for help, but trying to tiptoe around her not finding out where Stalker was, but also that maybe I was in distress. But I asked for help very poorly. I asked for a shift change because he we did an active shooter drill training. He complained during the training about, no bulletproof windows and things like that in the tutoring center. So this was all stupid. And he complained about that people couldn't leave their stuff just laying around and stuff, or leave their stuff with someone else to watch, that they needed to mind their own stuff because the security was going to be looking for abandoned bags and things like that that might have something in them. And he was very frustrated with all of that, and he even fought with like our boss's boss, and then he went and posted in again our public email chain for the tutoring center about it and stuff. But also, he told me that the student learning center didn't have bulletproof windows and there wasn't anywhere to hide, and that I knew, didn't I, that if a shooter came to the school, I'd be the first person they'd go for. And I didn't tell her that. And she's just my boss. So I said, can I please work a different shift than him? I didn't like how he handled the active shooter drill thing. And he's asked me to go do like a trauma date with his roommate before. And these are the least of things he's done. That's all I said. And I was like, I usually get along with everyone, but I can't get along with him. When we talked about it later, she was like, look, you guys' hours just happen to overlap. I want everyone to be able to get their work study money, which is a type of financial aid where you earn it by working. She was like, why can't you just be friends? And I couldn't answer that. I couldn't tell her because she's very smart, like a ridiculously smart person. So I just kept taking it. Kept being working at the same time as him. And 90% of what he did, we were alone with each other. And I didn't have like written correspondence with him because I was trying to avoid him like the plague as much as humanly possible. Again, we even in the tutoring room, we were like opposite ends of the room from each other. And the way the tutoring is there's separate sections. There's a separate room for each different kind of tutoring. So we would just be alone together for like hours, and it was miserable. And it got to a point where actually I had 3 jobs at the campus and I had to drop down to 2. And I had the opportunity to leave the student learning center without having to say anything about it. And I thought, I can't do that because he's so distracted with me. He's not really doing very much with her, hopefully. As far as I can tell, it's mostly directed at me at this point. And so I stayed there and I kept taking it. And I finally went and got up the courage to confront him because I had told him once before, no, I'm not interested in being your friend. I went to try to confront him again. I'm like, look, you know, I don't know if there's some confusion or what, but I am not interested in having like a relationship with you at all. You keep pushing, and I'm not anything but a coworker. And he's like, oh, there's no confusion. I've known for at least 6 months you're uncomfortable. And I'm like, if you know, then why do you do these things to me? And he's like, oh, it's fine. Or no, that's not what he said. He said, oh, I'm talking to you, the tutor, or you, the financial ethicist. So it's fine. I'm not talking to you, the person. And I was just like, and so I was like, well, to be clear, I don't think we'll ever be friends. We're like not compatible. And he's like, oh, yeah, I'm professional friendly and you're professional unfriendly. And I was like, no, it's just professional only, nothing else. Literally nothing else. There's no friendly or unfriendly. There's just only professional. Okay? Do you understand? And he's like, oh, I understand. Like, it was very disturbing because I wasn't expecting him to just be upfront about that he was doing it on purpose. And B, it was just so creepy. And of course, he still was obsessed with her, and that was so creepy. But he did back off for like 11 days after that. And so I thought, okay, I can live with this. This is better. Of course that didn't last. But unfortunately, during that time, I also had gone to our teacher because he and I kept ending up way too often in the same class and then ending up in arguments with each other. And I didn't actually want to be in class with him, but he kept ending up in class with me, and that was very frustrating. Pretty sure he did it on purpose, but I can't prove it. Um, but our teacher seemed to really like me, so I, said, "Hey, I know we have this big final group project. Can I please not be in a group with him, with this man?" And she was like, "Why?" And she wanted to know. And so finally, I told her I've had to report him before for stalking someone on campus, and he harasses me. But you know, I just need to not be in a group with him. And she said, "Oh, that doesn't surprise me at all. Last quarter, I had him as a student, and he said such inappropriate things to the young women in the class. And there were so many girls in the class that I actually had to go to the dean and ask to not have a group project because no matter how I arranged it, he would have ended up with a girl. And I did not feel comfortable having him intentionally placed in a position to be semi alone with any of the young women in that class." And I was like, oh my God. Because up until that point, I thought it was just my hero, who also happened to be our boss, um, me, and him in this weird triangle of me trying to make sure she doesn't find out who it is, and him poking and poking at me, and him being Mr. Nefarious. It had not come to my mind at all that he might be totally open to preying on other students and that his obsession with her had become something secondary. Um, I don't know how I morally, in any way, shape, or form, could have kept that to myself. So I tried to go to her, even though she had been in a very good mood and we had been getting along super well. And she, seemed super happy. I hated wiping that smile off her face, but I was like, hey, I need to talk to you. And I have tried everything I can think of under the sun to not have to talk to you about this situation, but I need to talk to you about this man. And she said, go to our boss's boss. And I was like, really? She's like, yep, just go. I have never had employees who just cannot get along with each other. And my boss's boss said that he's dealt with that before and that he'll take care of it. And I was like, you're sure? And she's like, yep. And I was like, okay. So I did. I went immediately from that Zoom call to the school, to his office, and I told him not everything, but I told him a lot. I told him about, the guy having come to the campus in the first place to stalk her. I explained that, he'd been harassing me. I explained that he'd been doing very not appropriate things toward her. I explained what the teacher said about him being inappropriate toward other students. And since he had been so aggressive towards me and towards stalking her, I knew what he was capable of. And I knew there was a non zero chance that he might be doing stuff like that to students. And I told my boss that, and my boss said, well, this is all conjecture. And I was very surprised by that because up until that point, I had thought he was a very good boss. And he said, you might be getting a bunch of people in trouble because some of the people you've asked for help about this are required reporters, and there's no report. Also, I'm going to tell her because if she doesn't feel stalked, then she's not being stalked. And I was like, but the number one thing this entire time has been for her to not have to find out about it. And he's like, this is out of your hands. This is happening. I'm telling her today. And I was just like, but the reason I let this guy harass me so much was because she didn't want to know, like, because she's been preyed upon before. And he's like, yeah, I'm talking to her. You can accept it. And I cried, I begged, and finally I was like, you know, well, at least there's some relief in that. If it's out of my hands, maybe there'll be help. But he did not help me. He did tell her that same day. She would not even look at me, let alone speak to me. And then he proceeded to spend the next couple of weeks leaving me alone in a room with that guy. He didn't try to change my shift. He didn't try to move me to a different room. Like, literally nothing. He did nothing to help me in any way, shape, or form. Also, as far as I know, he did nothing to make sure students weren't interacting with him who were girls. Um, as far as I can tell, he literally just like told her, she got upset, pushed it all away, and so he didn't do anything. So um, she wouldn't speak to me for like 2 weeks, wouldn't even look at me. And my teacher, who again was my teacher while he was in the same class with me, he man, he started right back into the harassment like full force, like even worse than before. And she was like shutting down arguments he was trying to pick at me in class, like in front of all the students and stuff, and having to deal with that. And she sends me an email like 2 weeks later that he was asking about my group project and stuff, but that she chose not to engage. And so I went and asked her, I was like, what stuff was he asking about me? And she was like, oh, well, he was asking for information that I would never, ever give any student about another student. Don't worry, I didn't engage with him. And I realized, oh my God, up until that point, I had been calling it harassment. He's stalking me. And I was like, oh, F and A, what am I going to do? And the very next day, my hero, she walked in to go to work because, she works there. And she waved at me and smiled at me. And it was just like a really quick little wave, but she had gone from not even looking at me, let alone speaking to me, to a smile and a wave. And I was like, what does that mean? Because I thought I was dead to her. Like, you know, for for having made it so that she found out who her stalker was. So I thought, well, she knows it's not a secret anymore, and I still need help. And she's my boss, and she's my hero. So I went to go ask her for help, and she told me it wasn't okay to talk to her. So I tried to accept that. She didn't she didn't tell me. She she's the kind of person who doesn't really yell. I've never heard her yell except once in my entire life, and it is when she yelled at me that it wasn't okay to talk to her. So I tried to accept that. I finished until the end of work study for the quarter, despite how horrible it was to be in a room with that guy. But I had made a commitment and I quit my job. And I went and begged for my old job back that I should have stayed at the whole time. They took me back instantly, thankfully. And and I decided that the tutoring center was amputated from my life. Um, I hoped that now that someone else knew about what he was doing, even if they hadn't done anything for me, that they would do something for her. And, hopefully be mindful of watching him around her or something. But I had spent months and months being a shield for her, and I was spent. I was exhausted, and I was not deserving to have to stay and keep taking this kind of shit from this guy. And it's not like she wanted me there. And it sucks because I had had that job literally since my very first quarter at the school. Um, and I had lots of friends there, and I really enjoyed a lot of my coworkers, and I actually enjoyed the work. And I lost my number one mentor I ever had in my whole life, my hero. Um, like the whole thing was just miserable, and I felt like that guy got everything he wanted. He wanted to drive a wedge between her and me. He wanted me out of the way. He wanted me fired. I wasn't fired, but I did quit. Like, he wanted me gone, and he got that. He wanted her and I to not have a relationship anymore. He got that. So then I spent the whole summer grieving, and I was very much struggling, and um just accepting that she wasn't in my life. I thought, except she came to my commencement. I graduated with my associate's degree, and my commencement was an extremely painful thing for me because she just randomly messaged me that she was coming, and then when she got there, did not tell me where she was so that I couldn't see her be proud of me. And I looked and looked for her, and she wouldn't tell me where she was. And I tried to put on a brave face for my nephews. I didn't understand why she came at all until I realized it was a whole bunch of her students who were there, who were graduating. And I realized she was just making sure that I didn't do something like weird or awkward, I guess. But then one of them told me she had something for me. And I went out trying to choke back like the pain of it. And she shoves it right at me and says, "Don't cry." So I didn't. And she shook my hand and told me congratulations or something like that. I don't remember. I was very just getting through it. So my brain was not at its best. I think I introduced my brother and, roommate, who were the only people who came to my commencement. Um, and my nephew, two little nephews, my brother's sons. Um, I was trying to be a good role model for them. I didn't cry. I think she took a picture with me, and then she said, "I guess I'll see you around school sometime," and like left. Like, that was it. Um, but I didn't cry. I got through the whole day, and later, um, she gave me a very touching gift, and it was like a vest because she had worn a vest when she defended her doctorate, and she wanted me to wear a vest when I defended mine because it's a passing on of the baton, she said. And she wrote me a card, and the card was very mixed. Half of it was not trying at all, and half of it was trying a lot and very thoughtful and sweet. And I realized she felt guilty for yelling at me, and this was like her way of giving a nice goodbye instead of a mean one. So that was very difficult. But I spent the summer trying to just get through. And when I came to the big event that the school has right before, stuff starts up again, I sat all the way in the front because she's almost always late to things. And I knew she'd sit in the back. She always does. And that way we'd stay completely away from each other. And it was a room filled with hundreds of people, like over 300, 400 people. So there's no way she would even know I was there. Except I won a freaking raffle and got pulled up onto the stage. And so up until that moment, I didn't think she knew I was there. I was like, crap, because the president of the school wanted me to talk about, the stuff I was doing, including the conference I was about to speak at. And I had, during the summer, to try to make myself feel better, applied to speak at a conference and submitted a research paper. But it was a conference I'd never heard of or seen before, but it just had something to do with ethics. And I thought, this way, when they reject me, it won't hurt so bad because it's not like I know them anyway. No, they accepted me. So, so the school was sending me to this conference, and of course, she always liked that kind of thing about me. And here I had done it on my own, and I was like, if there's anything that would be like something she might be interested in, it would be that. So I need to avoid her like the plague. And afterwards, they all went outside to take this big giant picture. I stayed inside and talked with some people. We came out just as they were getting done with the picture, and the president of the school said, "Oh, there were some people not in the picture. We need to take it again." So once again, calling me out, pointing right at me, drawing attention to me when I'm trying to be like Mr. Nondescript here. So the picture gets done. I immediately start talking to someone so that she can just go around me, know that it's fine. And instead, she comes right up to me and she's like greeting me and reaching for me like she wants to give me a hug, which she's never hugged me, never, not once. Um, and I was just like, "What is happening?" And I, I literally was just staring, like confused. I was so completely confused. And she saw the look on my face and backed away and left, and I just avoided her. But I couldn't leave because I was scheduled to give a speech at the end of the day. And so I just tried to be in a different group of people than her at all times. And man, it was so disorientating. And eventually I gave my speech at the end of the day. That went really well. And, I was just so confused. And so finally, after days and days of being confused, I sent her a message and I'm like, look, I'm confused. I thought I was dead to you. So imagine my shock when you came up to me at this event. Am I not dead to you? Like, what in the world? And she's like, look, you can either not talk to me about emotional things like that are negative and go talk to other people about that and we can continue on, or else we need to part ways. But no matter what, don't send me long messages like this ever again. I was like, okay, well, this won't happen again. And then we happened upon each other, and I told her, hey, I think I've had an epiphany that you just want to be like a career coach and nothing else. And I've been treating you like your family, and you don't want that. And you just want us to have like this business contract where when I do well, it reflects well on you. And when you do inspiring things, it motivates me. And it's just a contractual agreement like in business. She's like, no, that's not the right epiphany at all. She's like, I don't get anything out of mentoring you. And I was like, well, that's not good. Uh, I want you to get something out of mentoring me. And I tried to ask her, you know, uh, like, what? And she was like, oh, ha ha ha, I get nothing out of mentoring you, but I like to see you doing well and I'm proud of your accomplishments. And I'm like, what? This woman has spent over 2 years being my personal faculty advisor for me going to conferences and for my papers, been the faculty advisor for the club that I was president of, helped me with like creating events at the school and going to things, advocated for me to get funding when the government tried to shut off my funding sources for me to continue to be a student, like advocated for the school to send me to conferences. Um, we've had a couple of misunderstandings. I mean, we had a pretty big one where I wrote her an apology letter. That's the biggest apology I ever wrote for anyone in my entire life. And everything because she was like my hero this whole time. She was my teacher, she was my boss, she was like literally all these different kinds of roles in my life, like consistently the whole time. Why would she do that? Because she got nothing out of it. And I was like, you at the very least have someone who admires you. But I tell people how awesome you are. I try to encourage people to work with you, and you get a good reputation, at least from me, for it. And someday I want to pay you back. And I told her before, someday I'm going to write a book and dedicate it to you. And she was like, I look forward to it. You know, she's told me before that she gets depressed sometimes, and then she remembers, her students learn their stuff and that my paper got accepted or something, and she feels good. And she knows she's doing stuff that's worthwhile. That sometimes she gets lonely on a Friday night with nothing to do, and maybe I'm not always on her mind, but she thinks of me. And when she thinks of me, she thinks good things. um like I was very surprised because I was like, I don't think of myself as someone who's ever on your mind. We've had conversations before, even before this conversation, that were like she was getting something out of it. Like even on the way back at an airport, one time I told her that I didn't trust that relationships were anything but temporary, and that all of these people like they were just actually acquaintances and not really my friends, and that none of them actually meant it when they said they cared about me, and that if I went to another school, none of them would even remember me, and all those relationships would go away. And she looked me straight in the face and said, "Our relationship isn't going anywhere." Like, she was full on my mentor and hero that whole time. And here she was saying she didn't get anything out of it. That was nuts to me. But I went to this conference. She was very sad because it was her first time not being able to go to the conference. And here I was getting to go to the conference. And it would be my first time at that conference presenting. And the school was sending me, but they didn't have money to send her. So I brought her back souvenirs from it. She published her first book, and I happened to be talking to my friend on LinkedIn right when she posted that she published it. So I went and ordered a book right away because it's my hero. Of course, I want a book by my hero. Um, I told her, "Oh, I'm excited. It's going to get here on my birthday." And she was like, "I'm going to autograph it for you for your birthday present." And it was like super exciting. And when she autographed it, she was like, you know, made it this really touching thing, you know, and she told me to use it well. And jokingly said, "Oh, haha, I did use it well because at the conference a girl flirted with me." Um, and I didn't get with that girl, but I didn't tell her that part. I just thought she would be impressed that I even let a girl flirt with me because I had not and still am not been dating until after surgery, right? And she's one of the few people who knew about like the full onness of like how ashamed I am of my genitals. Like most people don't know about that, and we had this big wonderful moment um, being happy together, and she was so proud. I got an award at the conference, and she was very pleased. I hadn't even known I was eligible for the award, and it was like a big shock that I even could get it. And like, she was so happy, and I was so happy. And then we didn't really talk that much for the rest of the month. And we both had been accepted to speak at an event. We both went to speak at the event, and I didn't really pay much attention to her because, it was my friend's birthday and I was mostly hanging out with my friends. We interacted a little bit, but one of the things that I had promised before at that previous conference was that next time I would record her because I'd only taken pictures. So I did record her and take a couple of pictures and sent them to her. And yeah, we saw each other in passing and waved at each other once. But a month a month after we were so happy together and stuff, I found out that she was not my mentor anymore. And I found it out in a pretty brutal way. She did not tell me, and I do not understand. But back to Mr. Stalker guy. On the second day of the school quarter starting back up, while she and I were still in the very tentative parts of starting to be in contact again and stuff, and her becoming my faculty advisor again, on the second day of school, he came looking for me at one of my other two jobs that I had. And um, he came looking for me 3 times in the same day. And my boss at that job filed a report, and it went to Title IX for the district. Um, the Title IX people asked me if I would be a witness to the report or if I would be willing to start a report and they could do an investigation. And if I'm only a witness, I don't get to know the conclusion. But, if I'm willing, I'd get a conclusion and they could help me get an order of no contact with him. What really drew me in was the order of no contact. I thought, oh my God, he wouldn't be allowed to like keep harassing me anymore. is what I thought. And so I started cooperating with the Title IX people, and I unfortunately didn't have a ton of evidence because I had been avoiding him like the plague, but there were some witnesses, and um, I I would never have dreamt in a million years that anyone would have lied. And um, when I asked for the order of no contact and stuff, when they tried to implement it, the guy who was stalking me tried to make a bunch of changes to it to suit him better. And I was like, how is this possible? How can he do that? I don't deserve less than the same standard order of no contact that any student would have. Like, I don't deserve less safety than any other student would get. He's still trying to intimidate me even now. And I, I, I mean, he's literally told me before that he he thinks it's fine to do the things that he's doing because he's talking to not me, the person. So if he's changing wording in this order of no contact, he's changing it to wording that makes it fine in his mind to violate it. And that's not okay. I deserve the same exact standard order of no contact that any student would have. And so they went and made a second iteration of it that said it could not be modified. And so at that point, I had a real one, and they started asking me about this stuff and everything. Started gathering together witnesses, people who had seen him do terrible things. But the first people that they talked to was obviously him, and then um, my boss's boss and my boss, who my boss at the time was my hero, and my boss's boss. I don't know what he said. I have no idea. But her, my hero, apparently she told them that I made the whole thing up because I was obsessed with her and I was sexually harassing her and stalking her, and that I was trying to defame and bully an innocent student, and that the whole thing wasn't true. And so the Title IX people, instead of continuing to investigate or talk to any other witness of any kind, dismissed the whole thing and didn't tell me about her allegations. When they dismissed it, it just said they dismissed it. And I thought, well, maybe there just wasn't enough like evidence. But then people who had been witnesses, when I talked to them, they were like, yeah, no, they canceled our appointment. I had an appointment with them to talk to them, and they just canceled it. And by the time it got to three people who they had canceled with, I was like, what? Um, very, very confused. But meanwhile, I had gotten into the university that my hero had first introduced me to people at in my very first quarter. So I went to thank her. I thought that's a good thing to do, right? So I printed out the original email she had sent to introduce me to people because I didn't know that she had done this. And I printed them out, and then I printed out my acceptance letter into the university as the end, and I said um, how it was with the emails that she had sent before, and I said how it's going with my acceptance letter, and then I had a thank you message at the end, right? And then I thought, oh well, also close to the holidays, I always give holiday somethings. So I made it into like a little care package thing, and I put stickers on it and stuff, and it had like, some protein bars because she eats like crap. She she basically lives off of coffee and energy drinks, and ramen. So I put some protein bars in there and some little coffee packets and like little miniature office supplies because she really likes office supplies, and like a thing of tissues, and I don't remember everything, but one of the main things I put in there was a UW family pin because, again, I always treated her like she was family. And I put the emails, the printed out emails with the thank you message on top, so that when you opened it, the first thing would be them, and then underneath of it would be all these little things, right? I thought it was sweet, and everyone else who I showed it to thought it was super thoughtful and sweet, and they were like, "Oh my god, if a student did that for me, I'd cry so hard, I'd be so happy." Um, I didn't know she had done any of this. She did not tell me, and they didn't tell me. Um, I also really was trying to think, how am I going to afford university? So I she's written me letter of recommendation before. I'll ask her for a letter of recommendation for the scholarship I'm going to try to go for. Um, and I asked if she would meet up, and she didn't respond, but that happens quite frequently with her. She gets really distracted by things, and is pretty big on compartmentalizing. Like work goes at these hours, and school goes at these hours, and personal life goes at these hours. Like she's very that way. Um, she's she's neurodivergent. Um, so that's okay. I didn't think anything of it at all. And I waited for her to get off work just to ask her. And when she got off work, she snubbed me. Like I said, excuse me to her because she was talking with someone we both knew. And she didn't even like look at me. She just kept going. And I was like, what? That's weird. So she's upset about something. I don't know what, but she's upset about something. So crap, I'm going to have to ask someone else for this letter. I don't know why she's upset, but this is how she acts when she's upset. She just literally won't talk. So I was like, uh, okay. So I sent her a message that just said, hey, I'm not going to talk to you till you talk to me first, so that you have space to deal with whatever's going on. And, I like assured her I'd go ask someone else for the letter of recommendation and stuff. Um, so I already was not talking to her, and then, thinking, oh my God, are we doing this again? The same thing that happened like over summer? Is that what's the like? Why is she even upset? I don't know. I never could have dreamt in a billion trillion years that it was what it was. The very next day, I got a notice of her demanding an order of no contact, and found out that she had said all of that stuff about me in like November. And this all happened in December, so like a month later. And I was like, why did Title IX never inform me? And B, why did she never inform me? Like she literally never told me crap, and I literally still thought she was my mentor. Like that she was still my faculty advisor for my paper that I was doing. Like where did this come from? I don't know. It was like a full on just like bam. And as far as I can tell, it's just like a full on brutal discard. But I don't know why. And I keep trying to figure it out. She did this, right? She not only accused me of sexual harassment and stalking her, but she derailed the investigation into him and said that he was innocent and that I made it all up because I wanted her attention. First of all, I have never wanted her negative attention. I have actively done things to avoid her negative attention. I've always only ever wanted her to be proud of me. But secondly, even besides that, I was not defaming him. I was telling almost no one about him at all. I only went to people in positions of authority trying to ask for help. And each time I went to someone in a position of authority, they were mostly dismissive. And on the one hand, I didn't ask for help very well because I was tiptoeing around her ever finding out who her stalker was. But on the other hand, people did not inquire. And it was very obvious that I was not okay. And I think people just kept hoping it would be someone else's job or passing the buck along, um, that I was not all right. And it is a shame, I feel like, that I had to try to ask so many people for help. And yet it still was like less than 10 people. Like it's not like I spread it all over the entire campus or anything like that. So when Title IX, met with me, the very first thing I was like was, defame him to who? Like almost no one knows. And I'm not bullying him. If I wanted to bully him, I would have stayed working there. But no, I've been trying to get away from him. I quit my job. I've been running away from this guy, and I quite literally do run away from him. Um, like actually, like run. Um, he's not a good person. Like I'm scared of him. Um, and I haven't been talking about it, and it's actually been extremely stressful to not be able to talk about it. Because I feel like I don't even know who to trust. And now here, the person I thought I could trust most in the entire face of the planet is the person who told you any of these things about me. And it doesn't make any sense to me. I'm super confused. I have never once tried to show her my romantic side, and I've never gotten an indication from her that she would want me to. But I have always treated her like family, so there's that. But like, I treat lots of people on campus like family, and her allegations against me as her examples of me sexually harassing her were things like writing her big grand thank yous, which I do to everybody, or, that I acted like we were associated with each other. Well, why wouldn't I when she played so many roles in my life and she was actively mentoring me? Why wouldn't I act like we knew each other? Um, like they were really weird allegations, but one of them was that I was sneaking her information. And thankfully, I had in writing. She said I snuck her phone number. She gave me her phone number, and she gave me permission to get her phone number from a friend, and she gave me her phone number again. So that was very easy to disprove. She said I snuck her office hours. No, she gave them to me, and I could prove that. So it was very strange. And then she said that, you know, I had written her this big giant apology thing as a love letter, to confess my undying love for her or whatever. I did use the word love a lot in it. That's true. But I feel like it was very clear that I was talking about how I am as a person, that I'm a loving person. And there was even parts in it that were like, look, if you want to have a surface level relationship with people, you have like a plethora of options. 99% of students will want that with you. I'm just not that person. I'm a person who has like a desire to have deep relationships with people, in general. I also, in that same apology thing, explained that if she didn't want me in her life, I would just not be in her life. That's how I feel about people, period. And I made very clear you can respond to this, but even if you don't respond to this is what it will mean, as far as I know, so that anything will be a response. And I thought she accepted the apology. I had no idea that it could be construed in any other way. And she also said that she didn't want me to make that speech. But she literally told me, even when I said, hey, were you uncomfortable? Did it feel like an accusation? Even then, she said, oh no, your story's so important to tell. I'm so glad you're doing the whole speech. You know, there's no, please don't apologize. You're literally my sunshine. Thankfully, that was in writing. And so I could give them that. And it turns out, while I didn't have much writing correspondence kinds of evidence with him, she was such an active person in my life. I had evidence like crazy for her. Any single thing she said, I was either like, yep, I do that all the time for lots of people. Here, let me show you. Or else, uh, no, this is how that happened. Here you go. They were shocked at the amount of evidence there was, because the Title IX people were expecting me to be some sort of nefarious creeper person because of things she had said. They were like, she's changed parking lots to get away from you. And I'm like, I've literally parked in the same parking lot the entire time I've been at school. So she would have only had to change parking spots. What? It just happens to be the parking lot that's closest to my job. And they were like, oh, like every single thing was so strange. Um, the they were like, she she thinks that like you're like obsessed with her, and I was like, because she was my hero. That's not the same as obsession. But yeah, I have lots of other mentors too. You can talk to them. I actually gave, they were shocked. I gave them permission to talk to the school counselor, and th- she could tell them anything from everything I've ever said for the whole time I was there. I was like, I have nothing to hide. But meanwhile, you guys canceled an investigation into this guy, and I don't understand it because you didn't try to talk to any other witnesses. You didn't actually pursue this at all. And he's just roaming about free, allowed to do whatever he wants. Like, wasn't a big proponent of the Me Too movement, that you believe the victim, and that report, that investigation was about whether I was scared of him, not about whether she was scared of him. Even if she said, "Oh, I don't feel like he was doing anything bad to me," that doesn't change anything. One of the biggest things in the Me Too movement was, just because, oh, maybe that person, you've never encountered anything bad from them, doesn't mean that they aren't doing something bad to someone else. And they they I was like, how can you consider it a completed investigation when you didn't even talk to any of the other witnesses? Like, that's mind-boggling to me. And they're like, "Oh, well, you're just deflecting and we're not reopening it, and you need to accept that he's going to be here. You have an order of no contact. What else do you want?" Like, they were very defensive, right? And then they keep going, and I kind of was like, "Yeah, rub your nose in it. Rub your face in how good of a person I am. No matter where you turn, no matter what you do, you can't find anything bad on me." And the more that the investigation went on, the more I could tell that they were trying to come up with anything. They were like, "Well, maybe you're just stalking everyone on campus. Like, maybe all of the people, you write them these big grand thank yous because you're just stalking all of them." And I was like, I thank them. And they said, "Oh, to pressure them to do stuff for you." And I was like, I thank them because of things they already did. And here I can show you where people are happy that I do this. And, that they wanted to do those things for me, or that they wanted me to do something for them. And it had nothing to do with anything nefarious or bad. Over and over again, this stupid investigation has been like a giant attempt to malign my character, and they couldn't. They literally could not find any way to do that. And I could sense their frustration because it makes them look incompetent. It makes them look bad that they threw away that investigation and tried to pin everything on me, and I'm somehow turning out not to be a villain after all. It's very frustrating for them. Well, then she makes apparently 5 new allegations, and just had the meeting about that, like, what, Monday? And man, one of the investigators didn't even show up. I don't think that they could even look me in the face. I think that they couldn't even do it. Um, the person who was once my hero, who I have no contact with, and even if she got rid of the order of no contact, I told them I have no intentions of being in contact, because, like, even if she regrets this and comes up to me and tries to talk to me and pretend like nothing happened, I'm not pretending like nothing happened. That's not something I'm going to do. So B, it's not going to work out. So there's no point in interacting with her at all. She lied to them and lied to me. And you know, she was literally my hero. And she told them a bunch of things from like 2 years ago and a year ago, of things that supposedly made her uncomfortable. And I was like, why would she continue mentoring me and being my faculty advisor if she really thought such terrible things about me? If she was genuinely afraid that I was like stalking her, why would she continue to play such active roles, multiple roles in my life? Like, why would she torture herself like that? Even besides doing that to me, why would she do that to herself? It doesn't make sense. All of these allegations and stuff, these examples of me being bad, are like super old. Why did she not address them remotely close to when they happened? And they were like, we don't know. They kept, I could tell they were slowly getting more and more confused. So I get to this Monday one, and one of them's just flat out not there. And the one who is there is like, well, I thought, you know, you should know, A, we're about to wrap this up. And B, you should have the opportunity to respond to these things. And one of them was that she had told me I wasn't allowed to talk to her in her office about things. I don't remember that conversation at all. But maybe she's construing or she meant an inference that I of that. I don't know. I was like, I literally don't know what this is. The other ones are nuts. Um and I hate saying that because when she was growing up, her family called her crazy a lot, and and so she hates being called that. But they're like, a, they're absurd. Um, like the whole thing is absurd. Like everything about this is absurd, but they're really bad. And before I say them, the Title IX people at this point are dealing with another report about this guy because they dismissed that case, and that guy apparently felt really arrogant or empowered or something, and he went and started harassing and threatening one of the directors of the bachelor's programs at the college. And it was entirely preventable. That never needed to happen. And I told them that straight to their faces. I said, I don't know how I'm more ashamed that that's happened to her than you are. How am I, the unpaid student, more passionate about protecting people on campus than them, the people whose paid job it is to protect people on campus? I don't know. I don't get it. But they were just very stonewally, and yet the guy's gone on to do more bad things. So here it is. Not only can they not find any evidence that I've ever done anything bad, even though they've officially investigated me longer than they investigated him and officially talked to more witnesses than they talked to for investigating him when it was about me, completely comfortable with me continuing to come to harm. They still are comfortable with me continuing to come to harm. They will not reopen it, even though they recognize that he's obviously capable of nefarious things. But they said, since I'm not a girl, they still need to let it go because it's just bullying and it's not sexual harassment. And they said that's more their thing. And I'm like, what about the stalking? And they're like, well, technically the stalking is also more for like if it's a girl because he's a guy. And I'm like, wow. So yeah, they don't care if I come to harm. I'm pretty sure they would only care if I come to harm if he actually did show up as a school shooter and try to shoot me first. I'm pretty sure that's literally the only thing that would ever make them feel bad about it. Um, in a way that is actionable. I do think they feel bad about it because, again, the one Title IX person wasn't even there, and the one who was, she was like, you know, here they are. They're dealing with, again, a new report about him where he's threatening to find where this very kind older woman lives and, you know, threatening that he's her problem now and trying to destroy her reputation at school, emailing people in high up positions, telling them how bad of a job she does and stuff. Like he's going pretty hard on her, and they have to investigate it and deal with it. And she is a girl, so they can't just dismiss it. Yeah, so they actively know this as this Title IX person is showing me the new allegations, right? And I, I didn't understand the way that she was being. I was relieved that she was saying it would be wrapped up soon, but she was so like quiet and just let me read them off the screen. Like she couldn't even say them. She had me read them. So the first one, I said, you know, the one that it technically wasn't the first one, but I guess I'll do the first one next. It was the second one. And I was like, yeah, I don't know what that means. The first one, I didn't know how to react to because I was confused at what I was even reading. The first allegation, again, that the woman who accused me of sexual harassment and stalking made Her own words of allegation that Title IX took down were that, and again, I was just like, I don't even know how to react. But now I just want to laugh. She pulled her blinds down at her office because she saw me waving at people in their offices, which I do, and stopping by their offices. And she didn't want me to see her watching from behind the blinds. And she is so far deluded in like believing her own confabulation or something that she not only did this thing, actively was watching me while I was unaware of it from behind closed blinds, but like told Title IX that she did this and that she had a problem with me waving at people and visiting them in their offices. And she was worried that I would come visit her if I saw her there. And so she wanted to make sure and watch me because I was being unprofessional by waving at people and being pleasant towards them and stopping by their offices to say hi. I do that all the time. People have only ever expressed loving it. I've never had anyone complain. So I was like, yeah, I do stop by people's offices. I do say hi to them. I don't know why she was pulling her blinds down like that and being weird. And then I got to the second one, which was, you know, I don't I don't remember this kind of a conversation that I'm not allowed to talk with her about sub, stuff in her office, whatever. So then we get to the third one. She openly admits that she put a group invite in her Canvas shell as a teacher to all of her students, and I was actively her student at the time. And that I went to that group invite to a book club that she was hosting with some friends, and that not only did I attend the book club, but I also spoke during the book club about something from my experiences. And how dare I? And quite frankly, she's uncomfortable because since I was on that Zoom call, I saw into her home. Again, I was like, do you guys need evidence? Because I get email alerts when teachers make announcements. I can send you the announcement that she put that in Canvas for like all the students in her class. And they were like, no, we don't need that because she said it. She's told us that. I was like, okay. Number two, I had no idea that was at her house. How would I have ever known that? She hosted it with friends. It could have been at any of their homes or it could have been in like an office or something. How would I know? And they were like, fair point. And I was like, why are they being so nice about this? Usually they're like trying to hound me for more evidence. Um, and then I was like, and I did say something, but I mean, they flat out said, hey, more people can talk to than just us. Does anyone want to say anything about this subject? So I did indeed speak during the book club. How evil of me. And they're like, can't say anything to that. And so then I get to the next allegation. The next allegation is that oh man, what was it? The last allegation is what's coming to mind. And believe me, I will get there, but what was it? It was, oh, I know what it was. It was that I had my work hours at the tutoring center around when she was in her office, and that I specifically was trying to make sure that I was there at the same time as her. I was like, no, no, my tutoring hours were based on my classes and my other job. And I sent them an evidence of her actually complaining to me in our Discord messaging, my hero, her complaining that I wasn't available at a specific time to go to her office because I didn't have the availability because I couldn't work at that point, at that time, and I couldn't come just see her at that time because I had classes. And quite frankly, I could have gone one step further and given them my schedule for my other job where I had to leave um, straight at noon to go to my other job. And that's usually when my hero wanted to have like meetings, and then she would forget and have to schedule it early in the morning and stuff. So yeah, no, that's like just full on nonsense. They were like, okay. And I was like, why are the Title IX people, A, why is there only one of them? And B, why is she being so nice all of a sudden? To me. And then I got to the last allegation, and it's just like this paragraph. And it was so hard for me to read it and not just laugh. Like, at this point, it's starting to sink in just how nuts these allegations are. She's upset that I have been posting on my LinkedIn. She doesn't like the posts that I'm posting on my LinkedIn, and that I'm connected with so many people that she also knows on my LinkedIn. And she's apparently decided that I'm not allowed to be connected to people that she's connected to, and that I'm trying to steal her mentors, and that I'm only knowing people that she knows, so that I can like upset her and harass her. And that my LinkedIn, I need to not have it, or else not have a connection to anyone she's connected to. And I can't post. And I was like, no, she does not get to control my LinkedIn or what posts I make on my LinkedIn, who I'm connected to. I was like, most of the people who I know, who she also knows, are either from school. I met them at conferences, quite frankly, conferences she invited me to go to. And I met them organically there, or else she literally introduced me to them. And I was like, for example, she was upset about a couple of particular people. One of them, she helped invite to do something, but I had already met her before at a different event, and we had this woman who was a friend of hers come and speak at like an event that we hosted at the school. She helped invite that person to that. But even besides that, I interviewed the person because I was the president of the club and I was the one running the event. And I wanted to make sure, because this woman ended up being the keynote speaker, I want to make sure the keynote speaker is going to be a good one. So I interviewed her, and we talked about having met before a year earlier at a previous event. So that one was nuts. And then she had a problem with me knowing someone who was a friend of hers from a conference, but he was my friend super organically. She had nothing to do with how he and I met. We have names that are spelled almost very similar to each other, and we chuckled at that as soon as we like encountered each other. And then we just happened to have similar interests and kept ending up at the same kinds of sessions. And he and I like bonded, and he really liked the way I asked questions at conferences and stuff, and he liked how inquisitive I was and stuff. So when I presented at my first international conference, he made sure he was there and that he was the one chairing my session, because he was like, oh, I wouldn't miss it for the world. And he even made a big speech before I presented. And it was like super touching and kind. And yet she's accusing me of trying to like steal him from her. What? I was like, she's filed for an order of no contact. Why is she looking at my LinkedIn in the first place? Why is she looking at my posts or my connections? What is this? And the Title IX officer said, we can't answer that. We don't know. And I was like, look, I don't know who did what to her, but as far as I can tell, this is like very paranoid. And this isn't like on me. I don't know what I'm supposed to learn from this. I feel like I'm just going to keep being a loving person, and I'm just going to keep being nice to people, because no one else out of everyone I know at both the university and here has a problem with me that's like this. Most people are very direct and are either like, hey, you're not my cup of tea, or else, hey, you're like great and I'm happy to know you. Like, they'll be pretty direct. She's the only one who's like confusing and maybe confused about mixed feelings or something, of maybe I like some things about you, but I don't like other things about you, but I'm not going to tell you anything at all. And I'm just gonna, I don't even know. I don't even understand it at all. And they were like, we don't understand it either. And I was like, I'm not saying this to try to violate the order of no contact, but if I happen to know someone and she happens to know them too, no, I'm not going to punish them for that. I'm not going to throw them out of my life. And that's controlling. That's not okay for her to try to control my LinkedIn or them. And I mean, you guys have kept needing evidence, so I haven't like unfriended her on anything. But as soon as this thing is done, I'm unfriending her and disconnecting from her on like everything. And pretty soon she won't be able to look at my LinkedIn. And, I'm again not saying that to violate the order of no contact. I'm saying that because there's a threshold of, sure, I'm staying out of your life and you're trying to control how I live. And that's not okay. So she can go stay on her end of a room. I'll stay on my end of a room if we happen to be at a similar conference or event because we both are interested in some of the same things. But otherwise, yeah, I'm just not trying to interact with her at all. And she can just not interact with me at all, and that'll be fine. And the Title IX officer said, that's really good because you need to protect yourself from her. And I realized, oh my God, this freaking investigation has come full circle. I That's why she started the whole thing with saying this is going to be wrapped up real soon. Is they've come to the conclusion because they can't help it. They can't get around it that I'm not bad and that she might be the one who's acting obsessed. And it's pretty freaking obvious that there must be some small part of me that's a little bit petty because I feel very smug about it. But also, man, it has been stressful as hell. And I just, they could not figure out some way to villainize me. And they finally are to the point where they have to accept they shouldn't have let that guy go. They shouldn't have been so quick to listen to her and not finish listening to other witnesses or investigate anything further. Like, they shouldn't have been so much hounding me, trying so hard to find anything on me. Like, that maybe, just maybe, uh, she got caught lying. And the thing is, the entire time, I actually had in writing that she knew that I was ashamed of my genitals, and I could have proven that she lied about me sexually harassing her the entire time. But if I did that, I would have to talk to these freaking Title IX people, strangers, who are kind of out to get me. Um, it felt like that anyway. Um, I would have had to talk about one of the most deeply painful things about myself, and that would have been excruciating. On top of that, that would have really damaged her. That would have made her look super bad and possibly hurt her career. And while what she did isn't okay, her career is like everything to her. And it would have been deeply wounding for her to have been called out that way. So here I've been waiting for Title IX to just figure out that I'm not a bad person because part of me really kind of wanted them to have to rub their faces is in it that I'm a good person. Like, just have to have it shoved in their face over and over and over again by every witness, by every bit of evidence that I'm just this is how I exist, that I'm not actually bad, and that it's not got any merit to it. The allegations are stupid and quite frankly disturbing. Now, they're to the point of disturbing. And they they definitely did. They definitely had to rub their faces in that I'm a good person. And also I just didn't want to have to hurt myself. I'm not a masochist. And I don't really want to hurt her. She did a lot of really good things for me and I don't hate her. I think she's just triggered as hell about something. And I've tried really hard to figure out what it could be. And as far as I can tell, there's basically five options for why she did this, why she lied like this, why she derailed this investigation like this. And they're all kind of absurd. And technically, there's a sixth one that's super crazy, but it's so crazy, it's like not even worth really considering. Um, the first one, well, here, I'll just say the super crazy one first. The super crazy one is that she's in a relationship with this guy and that his stalking was successful. But the thing is he's like 30 years or more older than her. He's like super old and creepy as hell. And also, again, why would she jeopardize her career to date that guy? It doesn't make sense at all. She's just not like that. And quite frankly, I don't think she would date someone who she didn't meet in her personal life. Like, she compartmentalizes so hard. Like, she compartmentalizes herself, not even just all the other stuff. Like, she schedules a single time a week to feel feelings and to like cry alone, and stuff. For a few hours, like just that in a week where she's allowed to actually feel things deeply, and then the whole rest of the time, surface level feelings only. Like, she's extremely avoidant, and compartmentalizes super hard. So it just doesn't make any sense to me how she could possibly date that guy. Plus, he's like super not a good person. And why would she be interested in that? Like, guy, even besides how old he is and how creepy he is, and he's like got no any like he's got nothing that would warrant any woman wanting to date him. Like, I can't imagine any woman under the sun wanting to date that guy. He has no money, he has no life, he has no good qualities. He's not funny, he's not like, I don't know what his powers of manipulation are that he seems to have very strong, but that's his sole talent. That and accounting. He's actually pretty smart at accounting. But yeah, those are his talents. He doesn't have anything else going for him. Super nefarious manipulation and some knowledge on accounting. I just cannot fathom that. So the still very crazy hive, but less crazy than that, is number one, that somehow this drew attention to something in her career that I don't know about. And she did not want to be examined. And so the mere fact that the investigation was happening at all was the problem. Now, what it could be that she isn't isn't feeling comfortable about with her career being scrutinized, I could never guess. But I feel like maybe that's something that happened. Number two, which again, all of these are pretty out there, is maybe she has some sort of feelings for me and can't handle it. And maybe they're romantic or not, but like, she's not even my teacher anymore. I graduated. She doesn't teach any bachelor's stuff. So she would never be my professor again. But maybe that's the problem, is before there was like this excuse to not interact or something, and she had this realization or something that, oh, I could date people when I mentioned that I flirted with the girl at the conference. Which again, I didn't get with the girl, I just flirted with her. But like, surgery is almost here, and maybe something occurred in her brain where, oh no, what if it was an option or something, and she just freaked out. um and again, maybe it's not even like full on romantic. What if it's something else, like any kind of deep caring about someone, or feeling like I deeply care about her, that I would be willing to let this guy harass me for months and months to protect her. Either way, her having a strong emotion is usually some sort of problem for her. Which brings me to number three, which is that she might be genuinely like ashamed because she actively knew she was my hero, and she abandoned me to be preyed upon by a predator. I did try to go to her more than once to ask for help about him, but I did ask poorly. But she did know I was not okay. And She was dismissive of it and avoidant of it. She she doesn't really like conflicty things in general, but especially, anything to do with her career, she's very particular about. She has very strict rules about things just in general. Again, she's very neurodivergent, but she might feel terrible. She does not handle shame well at all. Like, if she feels pressure to be there for you or something and then feels like she failed or something, she'll just full on like axe it. Like, she cannot stand feeling guilty or ashamed about anything. And if under her nose I was being harassed and stuff, I've only ever heard her refer affectionately, like with genuine caring, about two things. She's called her pets her babies and her students her children. And if she does view her students as her children and one of her children was getting like harassed right under her nose, and then she, with the authority to, with a single email, a single message, just one, anything, could have stopped my suffering, and she didn't, she might feel really, really horrible. And the investigation might have brought it to her attention that I was in trouble. Because up until then, she was probably more thinking about that he was trying to stalk her. And maybe it hadn't occurred to her to start thinking about what he was doing to me. And she feels really horrible about it. And every single time I was nice, because, you know, I thought she was still my mentor, it only made her feel worse and worse. And then, of course, what did I do? I printed out those emails and I wrote her the thank you note, with my acceptance letter into the university. And in the thank you note, one of the things I said was, nothing you've ever done for me has ever been in vain. And if she was feeling really shitty about telling Title IX all this crap and trying to avoid, like, that he had harmed me, like, I don't know, maybe it's nuts, but I can imagine her saying to herself, oh no, that can't be what happened. Anything else must have happened. It can't be that. He made it all up. It has to be. It has to be that he made it up. It can't be that I just let someone hurt him for that long of a period of time. It can't be that. Something else has to have happened. Um, Again, maybe that's crazy sounding, but none of these are very, I'm sure about. But I feel like this is actually the most realistic one. Is this one right here. Because I've known her for a very long time. And it just seems like the most characteristic one. And she is brutally discarding me because she can't stand the the shame, like, of it. And yeah. The next one is that technically, number 4, it's possible that she really did think that I was some sort of like person she didn't like. Maybe not actually harassing her, but maybe she thought I was like, her being my hero was too much pressure, or that she didn't really like my personality. She has complained before that I'm too hyper or have too big of emotions, even though she knows the disorders that I have that cause me to be that way. Um, she has been impatient before about, that I am kind of an exuberant person, right? Just in general. And so maybe technically she's some sort of masochist, and she really did drag our relationship out to punish herself or to make herself miserable. So she doesn't really seem that way. Um, like, at all. But it's technically possible. And then number 5 is that these new allegations, I thought of it after them. She said I was trying to steal her mentor. I don't even know who her mentors are. But it's funny to me. She accused me of stalking her, and I don't know the things about her that a stalker would know. If you ask me where she went to college for even one of her many degrees, couldn't tell you if my life depended on it. I don't know who her parents are. Don't even know if she has siblings. I couldn't tell you her favorite color. No clue. But I know all the things that you learn about someone from spending hours and hours with them. I know really stupid little things about her nuances and her mannerisms. I know her insecurities. I know some of her favorite things that she likes to do and some of the things she doesn't tolerate well. I know her personality, her moods. I know her hopes and dreams for the future. I know, you know, what she values, what her hopes for, helping the world, what kinds of things she wants to do, what she's passionate about. I know the things from hours of conversations. I don't know crap about like personal life stuff, in her outs outer sphere stuff. And so I don't know who her mentors are. I'm not even 100% sure how many people on our LinkedIn we both happen to know. Uh, but it occurred to me that that's such a strange thing to say. And she is an extremely ambitious person. And maybe she's jealous of the amount of success that I've had. And she doesn't see it reflecting back on her the way that she would like. And one of the things she told me when she told me that she doesn't get anything out of mentoring me is that it benefits me, not her. And so maybe she's thinking about when she was in school and that she had a harder time than I did or something. And she's jealous of how rising of a star I've been or something. Like, I don't know. Those are the things I can come up with. And they all feel like so strange, but this entire thing has been so strange. I thought if there was anyone who believed in me in the entire face of the earth, it was her. I thought if there was anyone I would know 20 years from now, it was her. That we would have written collaborative papers together, maybe written a book together or something, done research together. Um, like this entire thing has been such a freaking emotional roller coaster and just left me so shocked and confused. And I told the Title IX person, I'm trying to spend more time around people who don't make me feel confused because she has made me feel confused more than once in the time that I've known her, and this time it's just like huge. So, uh, she doesn't have to worry about losing me. I'm already gone. And again, the Title IX lady said, "Well, this will be wrapped up very soon, and you can give us evidence for these things. And thank you for being so cooperative through this whole thing. And please protect yourself." Um, or I think she said, "You need to protect yourself." So I'm pretty sure Title IX thinks that she's nuts. Um, I mean, again, she didn't just watch me from behind blinds and think that that was a normal thing to do, but told them that she watched me from behind blinds and then tried to make it like that I'm the one doing crazy obsessive things. She tried she she accused me of stalking and she's been lurking on my LinkedIn. Like, god damn. It's so weird and hard to figure out. But no matter which thing it is, it doesn't change that this was her decision, that this is what she chose to do. And I again do think the most likely thing is that she's some sort of triggered, maybe by shame or by caring or by some sort of really strong emotion. But as much as I can have compassion for that, because I mean, I know what it's like to have a lit up nervous system. I have an underdeveloped nervous system. Um, as much as I have compassion for that, she still chose to do this of all the things under the sun. Even if she couldn't talk to me right then, she never talked to me ever about it. Even if She needed some space. She didn't say, "Hey, I need some space." She filed a sexual harassment claim against me and derailed the investigation into the guy who was actually doing really bad things. And I love the people at my college, and that he went on not just to continue to bully me, he's still continuing to bully me. Um, Even besides that, he's gone on to threaten someone new that should never have been drawn into any of this in the first place. And he's threatening her. He apparently was very open with her about that it has to do with me. I'm in the bachelor's program. So he wants in the bachelor's program because I'm in it. And to force us to interact or whatever, you know? And like like he's a very weird guy because he'll lie through his teeth and manipulate people until all of a sudden he'll tell them straight up exactly what he's doing. And it's so weird. And I think he does it to make them look crazy. Um, at least I think that's why he did it to me. And I think that's why he did it to her, is to add to his push that, oh, they shouldn't be trusted, or oh, they're not good at what they're doing, or oh, whatever. Um, Very uh, not good person. And she made it so that Title IX did not complete that investigation and let him go. They didn't talk to any witnesses. There were other witnesses who, there was a witness who had seen him on the second day of school, the three times. There was a witness who saw him doing the public masturbation thing to someone else. It wasn't to her, my hero. I'm the one who saw him doing that to her, but apparently he did it to another female tutor, and they never talked to her. Um, like they never talked to the teacher who had tried to shut down the arguments and who had told me that he had done, inappropriate things and said inappropriate things to girls in the class, and she had to shut down the project. Like, they didn't do shit. They didn't do freaking crap. They didn't. They had one person say, "Oh no, it must be made up," and they just went with that. So the thing is on the one hand, their job seems really hard. I would hate to have their job. I really hope they get paid well. But on the other hand, they need to learn how to do their job better. But also, I don't think they or me or anyone could have predicted that she would have done this, that she would have made this giant lie. And you know what's really weird and funny, but not like funny at the same time, is literally the next day after they show me these new allegations and they tell me I need to protect myself from her and shit. Um, I just happened to be coming up some stairs to go up into campus, and she happened to be leaving that same building. And I saw her, like just a flash of her. I realized it was her. And for some reason, like frustration came up in me. Not, I hate her. Not, oh, I miss her. Not, oh, I'm sad about this situation. Not, this is tragic. Like, anything like that. It was just frustration of, oh crap, now I have to deal with the annoyance of going around like this so that I stay away from her, so that I don't get within 10 feet of her. It was like, this is so annoying. That's the thing that came into me. It wasn't, and like, there wasn't any sadness, which there had been a lot of sadness. Um, and I think I've grieved so much about it that maybe I'm to the point of, like, acceptance or something, because it's just like this annoying thing now. And someone's trying to involve me in a project to save an event that I had, helped invent with the club and stuff. And they mentioned her. uh I did not bring her back up with them again. I don't want her being part of the project, because if she's on it, I'm not gonna be. Like, It's funny though, because when I went to basically walk in a giant square around her, she she wasn't really leaving very fast or anything. She usually has a like a very deliberate plod. She does like a thump, 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 thump. Like she's got a power walk thing or something. I don't really know how to describe it. Um, but she wasn't doing that. She had this weird, low, rigid, and I didn't look at her, so I don't know if she was looking at me, but she wasn't leaving very fast. So I had to go in this big square, right? But before I stopped looking at her, she glared that I started doing that. And I wanted to laugh because how is she mad at me for doing the very thing that she wanted? She wanted me to, have no contact. So here I am staying at least 10 feet away from her and having no contact. And, the last thing I see before I stop, seeing her for, again, just for like a second and a half, is glare at me that I'm starting to walk in a big square away from her. Like as soon as I started walking away from her, there's this glare, and then I didn't see any more. But it's like, why are you mad at me for doing the very thing that you demanded? You made an order of no contact. Like you told people lies about me, and you think I'm gonna walk like near you? If I get too close to you, you might accuse me of sexual assault next. What if our fingers brushed against each other? You'll accuse me of something. Like, I don't trust her at all. And she's like ludicrous. Like, it's to the degree of why is she upset at me for like being completely like okay with us not having contact? I don't get it. It's so weird. The whole thing is just so weird. It's so weird. But in a couple of weeks, um, the quarter will be done, and I will have survived the quarter, and I will be able to just focus on surgery. Because next quarter, I'm going to be getting surgery, so I'm not going to be at school, except maybe to go to work a little bit before surgery. But like, that's it. So my odds of seeing her, or thankfully him, are going to be way down. He has figured out that the bridge that leads to the school is not school property. And I happen to know that from having done enough security trainings to know that that's true. The security team for the school has no jurisdiction on that bridge. The bridge is part of the city. Um, so I've had to start really, really randomizing when I come back to the school, trying to avoid him because he started to figure out the times that I was coming back to school. And again, I run from that guy. Like he's so freaking harassy. It's horrible. And his smirk he gets on his face, his power trip at my misery is just, it sucks. So I'm looking forward to having a quarter off. Even though this whole situation sucks, it'll give me space from it. Excuse me. It'll give me space from him. Hopefully he'll graduate and go somewhere else. That would be nice. Or be asked to go somewhere else by Title IX because they finally did something. That would be nice. Um, but also get a break from having to be around even the slightest chance of her. And in summer, the college only has online courses, and the university still has in-person classes. But she doesn't teach anything at the university that I would ever go to, that I'm aware of. And like I said, at the college, she doesn't teach any bachelor's classes, so she can just go do her own thing, be her own whatever. I wish her a good life. Again, I don't hate her. I don't understand why she did any of this, but um, she did do good things for me. She changed my whole life. She saved my life. So I don't think I'm capable of hating her, but I do not trust her at all, and that's hard. But I have to figure out something and I've been trying to figure out what to say because people have started to notice that here's this person who was this massive part of my life and they're missing. And I've been trying to figure out what to say. And I feel a little bad because someone basically, you know, was talking with me and he came up and I said, she's not part of my life anymore. And they were like, what? 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 Like they were so confused and stuff. And they were like, why? And stuff. And I'm like, what do I say that shuts this down and they don't keep inquiring, but also doesn't, make me look bad or her look bad um, in some sort of horrible way? And I couldn't think that fast in the moment. And what I said was sometimes you know, trust someone and then it turns out that you shouldn't have trusted them and you know, they're not part of your life anymore. And the person very obviously thought it had to do with how I was born and that I was intersex. And that makes me feel bad because she's never been a bigot about that in the entire time I've known her. And I don't want someone to think of her as a bigot about LGBT plus issues if she's never acted that way. Like that's not fair. But I don't know what to say instead. I I mean, how in the world could I possibly explain this in any kind of way that doesn't say anything, but also says enough that people will drop it? Because people get confused, and I don't like making people confused. I don't like to be confused. That's one of the big problems with this whole situation is the sheer volume of confusion that she keeps generating. But also on top of that, I don't want people to really be curious either. And people tend to gossip. And I don't want to hurt her career. And I don't want to hurt my career. I don't want people thinking anything bad about me. I'm okay with them knowing the truth, but at the same time, the truth makes her look really, really bad. So I'm I gotta figure out something to say different than that because that didn't go over well. But I haven't figured out what it can be, and I feel like I keep trying to figure out what in the world could have caused her to do this because I'm trying to find some way to say it because I can lie by omission, but outright lying is not something that like like speaking a lie is extremely difficult for me. So I can't say something that's not true. But at the same time, I don't actually know what is, except that she chose this. She chose to do all of this. I don't know. And I tried super hard to follow all her rules. I tried so hard to be less emotional or hyper around her. I tried so hard to meet all her expectations, make her proud, to not be too triggery or anything like that for her. Like I tried so hard to be respectful and caring and every single time she started to get happy, it seems like something would come up and she would just I don't know, she wears Independence's armor and her armor has spikes on it. And I can be a pretty avoidant person myself. I can be a workaholic myself. We both have that in common. Um, using distraction as a coping method. I know right now my feelings are like really shut off about the situation, and later when I'm just laying there and I have nothing else that I can do, I'm probably going to feel a lot of big feelings about it again. I tend to have an initial reaction that's very strong and then avoid it for a couple of months or whatever and then have big feelings again and actually process it later. That's pretty common for me. Um but also it's just so freaking strange. Like the whole thing. Here's this guy who came, and he didn't come to the college to be a student. He became a student because he wanted to be at the college where she was. He wanted to infiltrate her life, and he managed to do so. And he got away with it for such a long time. And there's so many people who didn't file a report. When I originally went to file the report with the security office, they never actually put it in the computer, and they apparently lost what they wrote on it, wrote with and stuff. And I'm just like, it it was so important to me that I went on a snow day, and yet it was so frustrating to realize, oh, but it was a snow day, so they didn't have the computers up. Like, and I didn't know that. It's not like they ever told me, because they of course lost the sticky note that they put on it. If they lost it, they lost the sticky note too. That had my phone number on it. So it didn't even occur to me that they wouldn't have like filed a report or something. For a while, the Title IX people thought, oh, well, you didn't, maybe you lied and made up that you tried to file the report. One of the nice things about the counselor, me, signing all of the disclaimers that she could go ahead and talk to them, is she did have it on record that I had filed a report about him. So, but the thing about the counselor is she got pregnant and she was on maternity leave for 8.5 months. So, right when things really started to get more heated, um, she left to go to maternity leave. And when she came back, I asked her for help, and turns out she's not allowed. I'm not allowed to be counseled now. But at the same time, I told her, you tell them whatever your opinion is. Go for it. I have nothing to hide. And for a fact, I'm not trying to date anybody. I'm not trying to sexually harass anyone. Not just because I'm a good person who wouldn't sexually harass anyone, but also because I am not trying to get with anyone until after surgery. And my friends keep being like, "Oh, you need to date," and I keep being like, "Ha ha ha, ha. Maybe sometime," because most of them don't know. But you know who knew? The person who used to be my hero knew, and I even have it in writing. And I didn't give that to Title IX, and I could have, and I didn't, because I don't know. I'm not a vengeful person. I didn't want to like destroy her whole life, even though she very much tried to destroy mine. Um, it's funny, when I first went to tell her about that someone was stalking her, she was like, "Oh, no, 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 this kind of thing, if I reported something like that, it can ruin someone's career." And it's funny, she was worried about someone who was actually stalking her, about their career, and then she filed a report about me when she spent over 2 years trying to build up my career and help me through my educational journey and get me, you know, this big burst of momentum into my future. Make it make sense. It Like, seriously, if someone can make sense of this, please, by all means, please tell me. Uh because it may it's so nuts. And I'm glad I didn't have to talk to the Title IX people about my body. I don't feel like they are entitled to that information, and it's not like I ever felt like they were on my side anyway. Um, I how I was born is something that can be very painful to talk about depending on how into detail. And she knew that. Like, there was a person who used to work at the college who was very invasive uh, about questioning about, how I was born and surgeries and stuff like that. And it was extremely uncomfortable for me. And she's, you know, one of the main people who knew, or like even in the first quarter, there was a student who wouldn't cross the threshold because he thought I was trans. But, the point is he was very bigoted. I always held the door for class. I still do that. Even at the university, I still do that. And he just would not, because it was me. And he made that very clear. And he even left the class early. He did all his schoolwork and said he didn't feel like he should have to be in the same room as me, to the professor. And the professor was very shocked. And even in the very first quarter, before I got up the courage to tell her, this is what's happening and this is why. I couldn't tell her why. I could only say, look, the student won't do this. And she was like, why? And I was like, because they're normal. And instead of like, instead of being like insistent, or instead of being like, well, that insinuates something about you's not normal or something like that, she just calmed down and said, nobody's normal. And she just accepted that whatever it was, it obviously wasn't my fault. And how did she do that in the first quarter and now she did this? Like, I don't know. I don't know. She taught me so freaking many things. I paid attention whenever she spoke because I always learned something from her, just from her being herself. And losing that has been very hard. Like, she was definitely this like compass, like guiding me along. And I have felt a little bit like, am I losing some of my momentum? But I've been trying not to. I still fully intend to reach that potential. She convinced me I had, and I wanted us both to be there to see it. And now I just gotta witness it for both of us. But I just can't say that I'm relieved I didn't have to talk about the way I was born and my shame about my genitals to the Title IX people for my own sake, because in reality, I don't actually want to hurt her. Um, it is still very much true that everything I ever accomplish or do or become will be because I met her. She set me on this path and I intend to walk down it. And maybe people think I'm a little crazy for that or something. That's fine. I genuinely think she must be like full on triggered about something that I just don't know or understand about. And I never will. It's not like she'll ever tell me. She is very big on pretending like things didn't happen when bad things happen, which is why I don't want to interact with her, because last time she did that I was so confused, and I'm very confused still. But I'm not confused about that I don't deserve to be treated with so much disregard. I'm not anyone's trash. I don't deserve to be so easy to throw away. And this isn't the first time she's attempted to throw me away. And she she lied to me. And I've always been like such an open book. Like, even she knows that. Like, she said one time that she always ends up, you know, speaking about freedom and presenting about freedom, but she always ends up reading about love. And me, I'm an open book. Well, if my love wasn't enough, I don't know what is. If she thinks she can find someone who will admire her more or look up to her more or appreciate her more, um, good luck. She can go find them. If she thinks someone's better than me, she can go find them. Um, I, you know, got told by a doctor with my combination of disorders and how rare they all are. I'm an extremely rare person. There might be 1,000 or less me's on the planet, maybe even 100, and that's very lonely. I um I struggle a lot with trusting people and having a sense of belonging, and I full on told her that she made me feel like maybe I had somewhere to belong, and that's hard. It's hard to be this lonely in the world, but also I'm a super like good person, and hindsight's 2020. There are a lot of things that I wish I would have known. I would have done things very differently if I would have known. Um, I would not have let that guy harass me for so long, for sure. I I would have made sure reports actually got submitted. There are so many things I would have done differently, but with what I knew at the time, every single step of the way, I tried my very hardest to do the right thing to the best that I knew how. I tried so hard to be protective and to be caring and just do the right thing. And I did try to advocate for myself while trying to do that. How do you respect the wishes of a victim while not becoming a victim yourself? Like I tried so hard, and so I can live with myself. I happen to think I'm someone worth being, and while I do wish I would have known, I didn't. I didn't know so many things. And Immanuel Kant, the philosopher, said, "I will not teach you to be happy, but instead I will teach you to deserve to be happy." Well, I'm not happy. I damned well deserve to be, and that's where I'm at. That's what I've got. Um, we will probably never interact ever again, he and I. And in some ways it's sad, and in some ways it's for the best. But I'm gonna keep going because that's the way that I am. And keep hoping that someday I will meet more women who don't treat me like this kind of crap. Like, I don't know why this keeps happening. I've never ever once had a guy brutally discard me. Now, I've had guys do other things. Case in point, Mr. Stalker man. Um, but not brutally discard. It's only ever been women who have brutally discarded me. Never once a guy, but lots of times women. And I don't know what compels them to do that or to think that it's okay to do that. I have no idea. But I keep being friends with them and being family with them and being sometimes in the past lovers with them, maybe someday after surgery in the future. That I don't know. um Mentor. I, I let myself have mentors that are women, and sometimes it just doesn't work out and they brutally discard you, like full blown. And it happened again, which is life, or at least mine. But I was never ever trying to do anything bad when I looked up to her. And if she genuinely ever did think that I was like, I don't know, too obsessive, she knew I wasn't sexually harassing her. So I don't know why she filed that. If she ever did feel like, I don't know, insecure or something, I mean, okay, she definitely has insecurities. She has deep insecurities. She just keeps them buried under like layers of sediment of pressure. But if she ever felt insecure about that in specific, it was never ever anything I intentionally was trying to do, um, like create some sort of pressure for her. And I would like to think that she would know that I'm the kind of person who's very upfront about myself, and there's not small print. If someone has me in their life, they know exactly what they're signing up for by having me in their life. I'm a very, you know, enthusiastic, feel things big kind of person. And I don't get why she would punish me for doing things characteristic of myself, because I would never do that to her. Anyway, I've been avoiding saying this on this vlog. I've been avoiding making this video and recording and saying this all out loud, but the investigation's about to close, and I'm about to disconnect from her on LinkedIn for sure. But I mean, unfriend her and disconnect from her on everything. And I guess this is me making another final attempt to process it. And as much as I want intersex stuff to be visible, and as much as I want intersex rights to be talked about, I'm glad it didn't have to come up in this particular situation, and that I didn't have to do that with these Title IX people. I think I think as much as that would have damaged her, it would have also damaged me. And I don't think I don't think I deserve any of this shit. So I don't think I deserve any more damage on top of the damage that's already been done. I am not a masochist. Bad stuff happens to me a lot, but believe it or not, I don't actually want that. I actually would like a less hard life. But I also want everyone else's life to be less hard too. And I don't want only my life to be less hard. And so I refuse to do things that would only benefit me if it would hurt other people, even if it's someone who would deliberately hurt me. And she did. She deliberately tried to hurt me. And she's the person who, in the first quarter, when she found out, you know, I was doing something stupid and I was putting things together, my ex-wife, who had gone no contact with me, after she brutally discarded me, um, dropped me. My ex-wife, man, we were together for 10 years and 10 months, and she wouldn't let me work. I had to take care of her 24/7. I did everything for her. I took her to every appointment, but I wasn't allowed to go to doctor's appointments until finally her best friend, who she convinced to also be our girlfriend, um, was like, yeah, this isn't okay. And she was, doing bad things to me. Um, and, you know, it was like, hey, you need to treat him better. He needs to go to therapy. He needs to go to the doctor and all this stuff. She convinced that needed to happen, and convinced that, hey, I need to start taking hormones. That's something good for my health. I almost died more than once in that relationship because of my health, um, and not being able to address it. And she just needed constant care and attention. And when I finally got to the point of having my first surgery, you know, she had to be convinced. And I did everything I could think of to make sure that she would be as happy as possible and content as possible. I needed a month to recover, right? From a surgery. And my ex wife, I made sure that people were going to be on Discord or on Skype, back when Skype was a thing, with her 24/7, that she was going to have so much attention. Um, our roommate slash girlfriend, whenever she would get off work, she would just be, giving her attention. Like it was just for a month, right? And she seemed like she was going to be okay with it or whatever. And almost right away, she started having issues. She started not taking her meds right. She started doing things that meant that I, the person who was supposed to be bedridden, kept getting up. So I ended up stretching my scars, um, unfortunately, permanently, getting in and out of bed, trying to see to her. And she kept ending up in and out of the hospital. And she convinced everybody that I was trying to convince her to kill herself. And my brother even drove up here, like, to talk to me about it because she convinced everyone that I was like bad and she wouldn't take her meds until finally I yelled at her, "You have to take your meds." And she had like a whole group of all of our friends and stuff on Discord and convinced them that I talked to her like that all the time. And so I lost all my friends, my whole support system, and she left to go to like a wellness center thing. I packed her bag, like clothes and stuff for her when she was going to it, even though again I'm supposed to be bedridden, recovering from major surgery. And when she came back, her mom had flown in, and she just took everything that she could and left me there. Broke the lease. I got a call from the you know DHS DSHS, that they were like, "You're head of the family, but someone's here trying to turn off your food stamps." Um, like, left the state. She went. She zero contact. She left. I realized it was very slow. My brain was so slow while I was trying to recover from surgery. It was like everything was in like jello, and I couldn't hardly understand why or what was even happening. And it was like everything was on a delay. And when it finally hit me, oh my God, I'm going to be homeless and I'm recovering from surgery. I have nothing. Um, like, I was like, oh my God. And she abandoned her best friend slash our girlfriend. And so she came in and was like, the thing she wants is to destroy you. So F her. That's the thing that's not going to happen. You don't owe rent for the next 6 months. And I was like, that's not fair. You already are getting hit with the entire lease is now on you. That's a huge financial burden. I have an account that she didn't have access to with money. I have this money that we had saved up. I can pay you half. And she was like, okay. And so that's how I didn't end up homeless with stitches. I'm pretty sure my brother would have let me lay on his couch until at least the stitches healed up. But like more than once in that marriage, I lost all my possessions down to what would fit in the backseat of a car. Like, because she wanted all kinds of stuff. Like, more than once in that marriage, I sacrificed so freaking hard. And like I said, we lived solely off of her disability check. I wasn't allowed to work, like nothing. Like, she was so extremely controlling. And I did everything for her, like, poured myself out for her. And it still wasn't enough. She still brutally abandoned me. In the end, she just tried to just like obliterate me. And I've had friends before that have done this to me, that um back in the day when it was like lesbian lifestyle and stuff, and we would go to clubs and dance, and you know I was much more fit, and girls would like line up to dance with me. And one of them fell and broke their wrist or something and ended up in the hospital. And they knew I was saving up to go on a trip for my siblings, and they wanted the money. And I was like, that money is spoken for. That money is for my siblings. That's not for that's for me to be with my siblings. That's not for anything else. And so they convinced all of the people who had been my friends not to be my friends and wouldn't speak to me, just like full acts, just like that. I had an ex girlfriend who was very abusive. I should have seen it coming. She broke up with me via text message on Valentine's Day. And then later that night, while I had been crying all day, she comes home, smelling of alcohol and sex, went and slept with somebody and was all giddy and came and hugged me so I could smell it real, real strong on her. And she said in my ear, because I was living with her at the time, I want you out in the morning. And then she just and went to the bedroom. And the next morning, I had to get my stuff and get out. Um, which, multiple times in my life, like way too many times in my life, I've ended up with just enough possessions to fit in the back seat of the car. Um, it's it's always women though that have done this to me. I've never had a guy do this to me. Um, the whole brutal discard thing. Now sometimes people like fade away, or you had common interests and then one of you say stop playing the same video game. So then you guys kind of drift apart or whatever. That's happened lots of times. But those are like understandable things, you know. Oh, maybe, I moved to a different state. We don't really keep in touch that well. Whatever. That's more understandable. But the whole like, oh, I've just decided to end things and I'm just gonna like rip you away from like all things, and you're just gonna be confused and disorientated and hopefully destroyed completely and will never have contact ever again. That thing, I don't get it. But it's happened to me multiple times. So I will survive this. I will get through this. I've survived worse. But it sure is weird. Because at least with like the super abusive ex girlfriend, for instance, I can look back on it and see that she was just super abusive with the people who were my friends, I thought, and that I didn't give them the money. I can see I didn't give them the money. Even with my ex wife, how dare I have the gall to get a surgery that would help me and make my health better? How freaking dare I do something that she didn't want me to do? Like, she punished me super hard, you know? Um, this, how will I ever be able to look back on this and understand it at all? She went from being this person who was like my advocate, like the person who was my number one mentor, like saved my life, to this. I don't know how to understand that. But I guess this was me attempting to try one last time. But yeah, the case is about to be closed. It's about to be over or whatever as far as that goes. And that's that. I don't know what else to say about it. But surgery, it is March and surgery is in April. So on March 23rd, it'll be a month until surgery. So it's officially March 1st. So it's getting close. Um, I I can feel it inching closer, and I have a couple more weeks of school, and then everything's going to be about preparing for surgery. And after surgery is going to be a bunch of recovery and physical therapy, but also exercise. I'm very excited to exercise and run around and play all summer. And I feel like what a good time of year to be able to do that. Like I'll be have just recovered enough from surgery to do a bunch of stuff. I did realize swimming is probably not on the table because last time I got surgery, they were like, "Oh, you might want to wait like a year." Um, so sad face. But I still plan to do everything else: hiking and camping and kayaking, and I got encouraged to do baseball again. And I have a friend who wants to do basketball together, and I have another friend who wants to do boxing together. So I'm like, gonna just go play, man. I'm so excited to go play. I've been in full restraint mode for so long, waiting for the surgery. But tomorrow I have electrolysis, and there's basically no hairs. So I think she's right about that. Sessions will be 15 minutes. That's fine. You know, she's trying to make sure and get every little tiny hair, off of here that, you know, can be gotten off of here. As you can see, there was a couple right here, but like the rest of this is all freckles. That's not dots from electrolysis. That's actually freckles on my arm. But like I don't know if you can see right here where the hair is, and then this part's all smooth. I don't know. But yeah, I'm like grateful that we're making sure that, as little hair will ever grow back as possible before this. But in reality, the biggest thing is that there won't be any strictures or fistulas or anything nuts, happening during like surgery to create complications later in recovery or something. And there won't be any more delays on any future surgeries, and everything will be on schedule and it will be great. Goals. So, yeah. Um, I think I just needed to get this out of my system. And now it's out of my system, hopefully. And I mean, I don't know what else will be said about it except, oh, it got closed. Like the case got finished. I do have this like 1% of me that's like just struggles with trust and is like, what if it's a trick? What if it's a trap? And the Title IX people are trying to like do something else, But the majority of me could feel the shame coming radiating off of this Title IX officer. And again, the other one didn't even show up. Um, like could feel the sincerity when she told me you need to protect yourself, you know um could feel the sincerity when she was apologizing that she couldn't say more or she couldn't give any more clarity. She's like, I understand that it's frustrating that I can't speak more to this, you know um could feel her wanting it to be over when she said we're going to be wrapping this up soon. So and they thanked me like when I gave them the last bit of evidence to disprove the some of this crap. um these last allegations, they actually thanked me for how cooperative I had been and stuff. Like I feel like they're eating a little bit of humble pie. But they should never have let that guy go. Even if they wanted to investigate me at the same time as they continued the investigation into him, that would have been completely fine with me. I would have accepted that totally. um and not held it against them. But they didn't do that, did they? So anyway, I gotta go do schoolwork. I got a lot of homework to do. I am taking 6 classes right now. Homework's always a thing. Um, but yeah, this is a weird mini update in between my usual record around the 18th of the month things, but and it's long. Holy crap. Uh, very long, but whatever. Even if no one ever watches this ever again except me, that's okay. I still needed to say it.